My wife said I want to explore other options while we're still young. An open marriage would be good for both of us. So I agreed and started dating her attractive friend. She screamed, "This isn't what I wanted." Few days later, I served her with divorce papers. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Sup Reddit. My wife wanted an open marriage, said our life is boring and she wanted something new. Then she lost her shit when I started seeing her smoking hot friend from college. It's supposed to be physical, not developing a relationship, she yelled. Then went nuclear when she realized what I'd been up to. You'll have to get yourself a snack because this one's long and wild. I'm 31 male, a mechanic at an independent shop in Dallas. Nothing fancy but the money's decent, and I love working with my hands. Got a house in the suburbs, a garage where I spend most of my free time working on my pride and joy, a '67 Chevy Impala that I've been restoring for the past 2 years. I've been married to Amanda, 30 female, for almost 6 years, together for 7. For the first few years, we had what I'd call a genuinely good thing going. Amanda's a graphic designer at some boutique firm downtown, and we clicked on pretty much everything. We'd take weekend trips to the hill country, had this whole routine of cooking dinner together on Sundays, and could talk for hours about random stuff. Amanda's always been the social butterfly while I'm more of a Netflix and chill guy. Every Friday she'd hit up drinks with her college crew, this tight group of girls who've known each other since freshman year. Never bothered me because honestly, it gave me time to work on the Impala or catch up on whatever series I was binge watching. She'd come home with funny stories about their drama, and we'd end up talking until late. But around 6 months ago, something started shifting. Amanda's friend Brittany moved back to Dallas and joined the Friday night crew. Brittany's one of those women who thinks marriage is a prison. She'd constantly post Instagram stories from clubs, talk about how much fun she's having being single. Suddenly, Amanda started coming home from Friday nights with different energy. Instead of our usual couch time where she'd decompress and we'd catch up, she seemed restless. She'd scroll through her phone more, make comments about how predictable our routine was, ask if I ever wondered what we were missing out on. The intimacy started fading around the same time. What used to be natural and frequent became forced and cold. She'd find excuses to go to bed early or stay up late working on projects. When we did have sex, it felt like she was going through the motions rather than being present. About 3 months in, things got worse. Amanda started picking fights over the dumbest stuff. Like one Saturday, I was working on the Impala, and she came out to the garage demanding to know why I hadn't noticed she'd rearranged the living room furniture. When I said I hadn't really looked at it closely, she went off about how I never pay attention to anything she does and how I take her for granted. But then she added this real gem. Maybe if you spent less time playing with that stupid car and more time being a husband, you'd notice things that matter. She also started complaining more about the time I spent in the garage, saying stuff like, "Normal men don't need to hide in garages all weekend, and I married a man, not a grease monkey." When I tried to explain that restoring the Impala was my passion, she'd roll her eyes and say things like, "It's just an old car. Grow up and find something more interesting." She started making more comments about money, too, even though I was the primary breadwinner. "We could afford nice things if you didn't waste money on car parts," she'd say, completely ignoring that my restoration hobby actually added value and that I paid for it with overtime money. The distance kept growing until I felt like I was sharing a house with a polite stranger who happened to know where I kept my coffee mugs. I tried talking to her about it, but she'd just say she was fine or tired from work, usually while making it clear that whatever was bothering her was somehow my fault for not being psychic. The bomb dropped one night in March. I was in the living room when Amanda walked over and sat on the coffee table facing me. "We need to talk about something important," she said, and my stomach immediately went into freefall mode. Nothing good ever follows that phrase. It's like the relationship equivalent of, "we need to talk." She started with this whole speech about how she'd been thinking about us and where we're headed. I'm thinking we're about to have one of those check-in conversations couples have sometimes. Maybe she wants to plan a vacation or talk about buying a bigger house. Boy, was I wrong. "I think we need to explore our options while we're still young," she said. I stared at her. "What do you mean by explore our options?" She did this uncomfortable shifting thing and dropped the real news. "I love you, but I feel like we're missing out on something. We got together so young and we've never really experienced other people or other relationships." My brain was doing that thing where it's trying to process information, but everything's moving in slow motion. Like when you're in a car accident and you can see it happening, but can't stop it. Are you unhappy with our marriage? I managed to ask. No, that's not it at all. I love you and want to stay married, but I think we should consider opening up our relationship. An open marriage would be good for both of us. We could explore other connections while still maintaining what we have together. She kept talking about how she'd been researching it online and how lots of couples do it successfully. Brittany had apparently told her about some couples she knew who had open marriages and were so much happier than traditional couples. But then she added, besides, it's not like our current situation is exactly thrilling anymore. Maybe some outside perspective would help us both grow up and figure out what we actually want. The whole time I'm sitting there thinking this feels like a script she's been practicing with her friend group, complete with little digs at me disguised as relationship advice. When I asked if there was someone specific she had in mind, she hesitated just long enough to tell me everything I needed to know. No, I just want the freedom to explore if the opportunity arises. God, you're so paranoid. Can a woman want something for herself without you making it about your insecurities? That pause was louder than anything she actually said. Here's where I surprised even myself. Instead of losing my mind or trying to talk her out of it, I said, okay. The look on her face was priceless, like she'd been gearing up for World War III and I just handed her a white flag. Really? She said. Really, I said. If that's what you think our marriage needs, let's try it. The next morning, Amanda left for work practically skipping. She actually said, I'm proud of you for being so mature about this, like she was my mom congratulating me for not throwing a tantrum. I went to the shop but couldn't focus on anything. During lunch break, I did something I hadn't done since college. Downloaded dating apps. Not just one, but 3 of them. If we were playing this game, I was going to play it right. But honestly, I wasn't just jumping into dating to spite Amanda. I realized that if our marriage was heading south, I needed to get my own life together. So I started making some changes. First thing I did was hit the gym. I'd been meaning to get back in shape for years, and suddenly I had all this nervous energy that needed somewhere to go. Started going after work before heading home, lifting weights and running on the treadmill. It felt good to focus on something I could control. Weekends became all about the Impala. Instead of trying to squeeze in time with Amanda, who was clearly not interested and would just make snide comments anyway, I'd spend entire Saturdays and Sundays in the garage. It was therapeutic, and I was making real progress on the restoration. I also started hanging out with my buddies more. Troy, Chris, and Bruno had been asking me to join their poker nights for months, and I finally started going. Bruno, my Mexican best friend since high school, immediately called me out when I showed up to the first game looking like hell. Dude, you look like someone ran over your dog with your own truck, Bruno said, dealing cards. What's Amanda got you doing now? When I explained the open marriage situation, Bruno nearly choked on his drink. Wait. She basically said, I want to bang other guys but keep you around for emotional support and mortgage payments. And you said, yes. Bro, you're either playing 4D chess or you've completely lost your mind. Setting up the dating profiles was weird as hell. How do you write married guy looking for something casual without sounding like a complete creep? Turns out there are way more people interested in that setup than I expected. Apparently, Dallas is full of people who want connection without the commitment. My first few dates were complete disasters. There was Emma, a yoga instructor who spent the entire dinner talking about her spiritual journey and chakra alignment. Then Victoria, who seemed normal until she started showing me photos of her 3 cats and explaining their personalities in disturbing detail. But here's the thing. I wasn't just having fun. I was preparing my exit. My marriage is already over since Amanda asked to open it. So during that time, while she's enjoying this new experience, I got to work. After that second train wreck of a date, I spent the next few days quietly moving money around. I opened a separate checking account and started having part of my paycheck deposited there. I made copies of all our financial documents, insurance policies, and property records. I also called my buddy Ryan, who'd gone through a nasty divorce 2 years earlier. He gave me the name of his lawyer and some advice. Document everything, secure your assets, and don't tip your hand until you're ready to move. Meanwhile, I kept up the dating charade. Amanda started going out more often, staying out later, and coming home with this glow I remembered from when we first started dating. Except now, it wasn't because of me. I noticed she was starting to ask casual questions about my dating life, but in that way women do when they're fishing for information, without wanting to seem like they're fishing. How's the app thing going? She'd ask while doing dishes. Meeting anyone interesting? Then she'd always follow it up with something about how she was sure I'd find someone appropriate for my level. Bruno had the perfect response when I told him about this. Oh, she's fishing all right. But instead of catching information, She's about to catch these hands when she realizes you're not sitting around crying into your toolbox. I also noticed her watching me more carefully. She'd make comments about me going to the gym like, I guess you're trying to impress someone now. Ask why I was working so much overtime with this accusatory tone like I was stealing from her, and even seemed annoyed when I'd spend entire weekends in the garage instead of hanging around the house waiting for her to come back from her dates. Now here's what happened before everything went nuclear. One evening, while I was scrolling my phone, I matched with Valeria. I recognized her immediately. Valeria had been Amanda's roommate junior year and was in a bunch of their group pictures. She was the one Amanda always made passive-aggressive comments about, usually something about how Valeria always got all the attention, or how guys would hit on Valeria when they were out together. Valeria was objectively gorgeous, like movie star gorgeous, with dark hair, green eyes, and the kind of smile that makes you forget what you were saying. When we matched, I wasn't even sure if I should mention that I knew who she was. But Valeria brought it up first, saying she remembered me and asking if we were still together. I explained the open marriage situation, and she seemed genuinely surprised, but not judgmental. Amanda always did like to shake things up, she said with this little smile that told me there was history there. Our first coffee date lasted 4 hours. Valeria was everything Amanda used to be before we got comfortable. Intelligent, funny, actually interested in what I had to say. She asked about my work, my Impala restoration project, my thoughts on everything from movies to current events. She listened to my answers and asked follow-up questions instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. Valeria and I started seeing each other twice a week. The chemistry was immediate and intense, but more than that, being with her felt easy in a way I'd forgotten was possible. One evening when she came over, I was working on the Impala's transmission, and she actually seemed interested in watching me work. She asked questions about what I was doing, complimented my tools, and even handed me parts when I needed them. It was amazing having someone who appreciated the craftsmanship and skill that went into restoring a classic car, instead of complaining about the time I spent on it or calling it a stupid hobby. She's beautiful, Valeria said, running her hand along the Impala's fender. You've done incredible work on her. This takes real skill and patience. That might have been the moment I knew I was falling for her. Amanda had never once said anything positive about my car project, and here was Valeria genuinely appreciating both the car and the work I'd put into it. Meanwhile, I was keeping up my new routine. Gym 4 times a week, extra projects at work, poker nights with the guys, weekends dedicated to the Impala. I was actually feeling better about myself than I had in months. I was getting in shape, making more money, and genuinely enjoying my free time instead of walking on eggshells around Amanda. Bruno noticed the change immediately. Damn, man. You went from looking like a kicked puppy to looking like you just won the lottery. Valeria's got you glowing like a quinceañera candle. Amanda definitely noticed the changes. She started making comments about how I was never around anymore, and asking why I was suddenly so busy, but with this entitled tone like I owed her my schedule. The irony was incredible. She was the one who wanted space to explore other people, but she seemed bothered that I was actually using my time productively, instead of sitting around waiting for her. I thought the point of this was for us to still prioritize our marriage, she said one night, when I told her I was going out. You're acting like a single man. Isn't that what you wanted? I asked. Not like this. You're supposed to still care about coming home to me. Her questions about my dating life became more frequent and pointed. She wanted to know where I was going, who I was meeting, what we did together. But she'd ask in this condescending way, like, I hope you're being safe out there, or just remember some women are only interested in what they can get from you. I kept things vague because, honestly, what was I supposed to say? That I was having the time of my life with someone who made me feel appreciated again? After about 3 weeks, I could tell Amanda was getting anxious. She started coming home earlier from her own dates and got this tight expression whenever I mentioned I was going out. She also started making these little comments like, remember, this is just for fun, not for falling in love. Bruno's take on this was perfect. She's acting like a kid who gave away her favorite toy and now wants it back because someone else is playing with it. Except the toy is you, and you're not stuffed with cotton, you're stuffed with common sense. One night she tried to initiate intimacy with me for the first time in months. She came into the living room, wearing this lingerie I hadn't seen in forever, clearly expecting me to jump at the opportunity. But honestly, I wasn't feeling it. Between her recent coldness and the fact that I knew she was sleeping with Rick, the whole thing felt gross. I'm not really in the mood, I told her. Her face went through about 5 different emotions. What do you mean you're not in the mood? I'm your wife, and I'm allowed to choose who I want to sleep with, just like you are, I said. That was the whole point of the open marriage, right? She looked like I'd slapped her. That's not the same thing. You can't just reject me like I'm some random woman. I'm your wife. How is it not the same thing? You've been out there exploring your options, and now I get to explore mine. That includes choosing when and with whom I want to be intimate. You're being ridiculous. Wives have certain rights in a marriage, and you can't just decide to ignore them because you're having some midlife crisis with dating apps. She stormed off to the guest room, and I could hear her on the phone with Brittany, probably complaining about how unreasonable I was being. The irony was incredible. She wanted the freedom to see other people, but expected me to still be available whenever she felt like it. The turning point came when I decided to invite Valeria over for dinner. I told Amanda that evening that I was having a friend over for dinner the next night. She asked who, and I said it was someone she knew from college. When Valeria arrived, looking absolutely stunning in a simple black dress, Amanda's face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Dinner was incredibly awkward. Amanda was fake polite to Valeria, but kept making these subtle digs about how Valeria was still playing the field and must be having so much fun being single. She also made comments like, some people never learn to settle down, and I guess not everyone is cut out for real commitment. Valeria, to her credit, was gracious and actually tried to include Amanda in the conversation. The whole time I could see Amanda watching how Valeria and I interacted, how Valeria laughed at my jokes, how she asked follow-up questions about stories Amanda had clearly stopped listening to years ago, how she complimented the dinner I'd cooked instead of critiquing it. After dinner, Valeria asked if she could see the Impala, and I proudly showed her out to the garage. I could see Amanda watching us through the kitchen window, her face getting darker by the minute as Valeria admired my work. After Valeria left, Amanda waited exactly 30 seconds before losing her absolute mind. When I told Bruno about the dinner later, he was dying laughing. So your wife's college roommate shows up looking like a snack, actually appreciates your work, and Amanda's watching through the window like some psycho neighbor? Bro, that's not dinner. That's a telenovela episode. What the hell was that? Amanda screamed the second the door closed behind Valeria. I played dumb. What was what? You brought Valeria here? To our house? Of all the people you could be seeing, it had to be her? I thought you'd be happy to reconnect with an old friend, I said, which only made her angrier. Don't give me that bull. You know exactly what you were doing. You brought her here to rub it in my face because you know she's always been everything I'm not. Rub what in your face? The fact that I'm dating someone, like we agreed? Not someone like her. Valeria's always been the one who gets everything handed to her. The guys, the attention, everything. And now you're just another one of them, aren't you? Just another guy who thinks she's so special. So let me get this straight, I said. You asked for an open marriage so you could see other people, but you're mad that I'm actually seeing someone? I didn't think you'd find someone like her, she said. And there it was. The truth finally coming out. I thought you'd maybe find some desperate woman who'd be grateful for whatever attention she could get from a married man. Someone like what? Someone who actually seems to enjoy my company? Someone who appreciates the things I'm passionate about instead of calling them stupid? Amanda's face crumpled, but then the anger came back stronger. Someone better than me, is that what you're saying? You think you're too good for me now because some college princess is slumming it with you? I stared at her for a long moment. This isn't what I had in mind when we agreed to open the marriage, I said, throwing her earlier words back at her. This is different, she protested. You're supposed to be exploring, not replacing me. And definitely not with someone who's going to make me look pathetic by comparison. How? How is it different? She couldn't answer because there was no answer. She'd expected me to fail at this while she got to explore whatever she wanted. The idea that I might actually find someone amazing, especially someone she knew and had always been insecure about, had never occurred to her. In her mind, I was supposed to be grateful for whatever scraps of attention she threw my way while she had her fun. That's when she spilled it. She'd been seeing Rick, a coworker, for 2 months before she even brought up the open marriage idea. They'd been flirting and she knew she wanted to pursue it, but didn't want to be a cheater. The whole open marriage conversation had been her way of getting permission for something she was already emotionally invested in. Besides, she added, like this somehow made it better, Rick actually appreciates me. He doesn't spend all his time playing with cars like some teenager. He has real ambitions and goals. I felt this weird calm settle over me, like when you finally figure out what's wrong with an engine that's been running rough. Well, that changes things. She'd essentially been having an emotional affair and then manipulated me into agreeing to an arrangement that legitimized it. When she tried to argue that she hadn't technically done anything wrong, I cut her off. The boundaries were crossed before they were even established, I told her, and left the room. That's when I decided it was the time. The next morning, I called my lawyer and set up a consultation. Within a week, I had my ducks in a row. I played it cool for another 2 weeks, acting like everything was normal while the lawyer prepared the paperwork. Amanda seemed to think we'd work through her Rick revelation with some counseling and boundary adjustments. First, she begged me to stop seeing Valeria. Then she suggested we dial back the open marriage and focus on rebuilding our connection. I think we've both learned some valuable lessons, she said. Maybe we rushed into this too fast. I'm willing to be more understanding about your needs, if you can be more mature about mine. I nodded along. The lawyer was impressed with how thoroughly I'd prepared. Most guys come in here after their wife has already cleaned them out, he said. You're way ahead of the game. Bruno's reaction when I told him my plan. So you're going full John Wick but with divorce papers instead of guns? My man, you're about to serve her papers colder than a margarita in December. On a Thursday morning, while Amanda was getting ready for work, the process server knocked on our door. Amanda answered in her bathrobe, probably expecting a delivery. Instead, she got handed divorce papers. Her scream could probably be heard 3 houses down. What the hell is this? She shrieked, waving the papers like they were on fire. I calmly sipped my coffee. Divorce papers. You can't be serious. We just talked about working on things. No, you talked about working on things. I listened. There's a difference. She started crying, then got angry, then cycled back to crying. This isn't fair. You didn't even give me a chance to fix this. I said I was willing to compromise. You had 6 years to not manipulate me and lie about emotional affairs. That was your chance. But we agreed to try the open marriage. You said you were okay with it. You can't just change your mind and punish me for following the rules we both agreed to. Even now, she was acting like she was the victim. I was okay with honesty and mutual respect. You gave me neither. I can't believe you've been planning this behind my back. How long have you been scheming like some kind of psychopath? This is so manipulative. About as long as you've been seeing Rick, I said. That shut her up for exactly 5 seconds before she started screaming about how unfair it was that I didn't warn her, how I should have given her a chance to fight for us, how this wasn't what she wanted. Real men don't just give up on their marriages. They fight for what they love. But I guess you never really loved me if you can just throw it all away like this. You wanted an open marriage, I reminded her. Now you're getting the ultimate open marriage. We'll both be free to see whoever we want. Then came the part that really set her off. According to the other papers, she had 30 days to find alternative housing since the house was mine, bought and paid for before we got married. Her name wasn't on the deed, the mortgage, or any of the utilities. You can't kick me out, she screamed. This is my home too. I've been living here for 3 years. I have rights. Actually, it's not. You've got 30 days. Where am I supposed to go? I can't afford my own place on my salary. You know that. This is financial abuse. I hear Rick has a place, I said, which made her face turn an interesting shade of purple. Rick and I aren't. We're not ready for that kind of step yet. You can't just force me to move in with someone because it's convenient for you. She threw the papers at me and stormed upstairs. I could hear her on the phone, probably calling Brittany or her mom, sobbing about how cruel and calculating I was being. About 2 hours later, my phone rang. Amanda's mom. I should have let it go to voicemail, but I answered. Bad move. How dare you do this to my daughter? She started screaming before I could even say hello. Hello to you too, Elizabeth, I said. Don't you hello me. Amanda is upstairs crying her eyes out because of what you've done. How could you be so cruel? She made one little mistake and you're destroying her life over it. One little mistake. Right. Elizabeth, I don't think you have the full story. I have enough of the story. Amanda told me everything. She said you two agreed to try new things in your marriage, and now you're punishing her for it. That's not how marriage works. Marriage is about forgiveness and working through problems, not running away the second things get difficult. She asked for an open marriage to cover up the fact that she was already having an emotional affair, I said calmly. That's not trying new things. That's cheating with extra steps. That's not what she told me. She said you both wanted to explore, and now you're being vindictive because she found someone first. You're just jealous that she's more attractive and social than you are. Elizabeth, I'm not going to argue with you about this. Amanda and I are getting divorced. The papers have been filed. You can't just throw away 6 years of marriage. What about for better or worse? What about working through problems? You're being selfish and immature. My daughter deserves a real man who will fight for their marriage, not someone who gives up and runs to lawyers the second things get challenging. I'm being selfish. I actually laughed. Your daughter manipulated me into an open marriage so she could sleep with her coworker guilt-free. And I'm the selfish one. She's trying to work on things. She wants to go to counseling, but you won't even give her a chance because you're too stubborn and proud. and probably jealous that she found someone more successful than you. She had 6 years to not lie to me. That was her chance. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere for appreciation. First sign of trouble. And now it was my fault that she cheated because I wasn't a better husband. This woman was delusional. Elizabeth, with all due respect, this conversation is over. Don't call me again. Don't you dare hang up on me. I'm not finished with you. You're going to regret this when you realize what you're throwing up. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Within minutes, I got a text from an unknown number that was clearly her using Amanda's dad's phone, calling me every name in the book and threatening to make me pay for hurting their daughter. I blocked that number too and forwarded the threatening messages to my lawyer. The apple definitely didn't fall far from the tree. When I told Bruno about the Elizabeth phone call, he was rolling. Bro, her mom called you nothing special? That's rich coming from a woman whose daughter just got served divorce papers like a McDonald's order. I bet Elizabeth's the type who asked to speak to the manager at Walmart. The next 30 days were absolutely wild. Amanda seemed to think if she made my life miserable enough, I'd change my mind about the divorce. She'd leave passive-aggressive notes around the house about how some people don't know a good thing when they have it, and how certain people will regret their choices when they're old and alone. But here's the thing. It was my house, so I started inviting Valeria over regularly. She would come by after work sometimes and sit in the garage with me while I worked on the Impala. She'd hand me tools and just enjoy watching the process. It was everything I'd wanted to share with Amanda, but never could. I could see Amanda watching us from the kitchen window, getting more and more agitated every time Valeria showed genuine interest in my work. By day 15, Amanda couldn't handle watching Valeria and me together anymore. She packed her bags in a dramatic huff and went to Rick's place, declaring she didn't need this house, and that I'd regret throwing away our marriage for some college fantasy who probably won't stick around once the novelty wears off. I felt nothing but relief when her car pulled out of the driveway. Bruno's text when I told him she'd finally left. Amanda's gone? Time to celebrate. I'm bringing tacos. We're toasting to your freedom, hermano. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Amanda tried to claim she deserved half the house, despite not being on any paperwork, arguing that she'd contributed to the household and that her emotional labor should count for something. My lawyer shut that down quickly. She got her car, her personal belongings, and half of our joint savings account. That was it. At first, I thought that would be the end of it. Amanda got what she thought she wanted, freedom to be with Rick without the burden of our marriage. But apparently, that's not how her twisted logic worked. Rick bailed on her about 6 weeks after she moved in with him. According to mutual friends, he got tired of her constant drama about the divorce and her obsession with tracking my social media. She'd apparently spent their dates complaining about me and Valeria, instead of focusing on their relationship. Bruno's reaction to this news. Rick ran faster than a tourist from a street taco that's been sitting in the sun too long. Can't say I blame him. That's when Amanda's behavior got really weird. It started with flowers. I'd come home from the shop and find bouquets on my front porch with these handwritten notes about how sorry she was and how she wanted to talk things through like adults. The notes also included gems like, I know you're just acting out because you're hurt, and we both know Valeria is just a rebound. You'll come to your senses eventually. I threw them away and figured she'd get the hint eventually. She didn't. Valeria started getting Instagram DMs from Amanda, long rambling messages about how Valeria was destroying a family and how she hoped Valeria was happy with herself. The messages got increasingly nasty, calling Valeria everything from a homewrecker to the kind of woman who preys on vulnerable men going through difficult times. When Valeria blocked her main account, Amanda created fake profiles to keep messaging her. The messages got increasingly unhinged, accusing Valeria of stealing someone else's husband and saying things like, enjoy him while it lasts, because men like him always go back to their wives eventually. Bruno's take on the Instagram stalking. Amanda's making fake accounts like she's running a quinceañera planning business. Next thing you know, she'll be sliding into Valeria's DMs as Flower Girl 2024, talking about how she makes the best tamales. Then came the Mutual Friends campaign. Amanda started reaching out to everyone we knew, telling them her version of events where I was a controlling manipulator who abandoned her for her college roommate. Some people bought it, but most had seen enough of Amanda's behavior over the years to know better. The breaking point came when Valeria and I went to our friend Chris's birthday party. Amanda showed up uninvited and spent the entire night following us around, making loud comments about how some people have no loyalty and how certain people couldn't be trusted around other people's husbands. She even tried to corner Valeria in the bathroom to explain the real situation and allegedly told her that I was just using her to make me jealous. We left early, but the whole thing was embarrassing as hell. That weekend, I found Amanda sitting in her car outside my house when I got back from picking up parts for the Impala. She rolled down the window and started yelling about how I was parading that woman around like some trophy, and how I was rubbing it in her face just to be cruel. You don't live here anymore, Amanda, I told her. You need to leave. This used to be my home. I have a right to drive down this street. You can't control the whole neighborhood just because you want to play house with your little girlfriend. You have a right to drive down the street. You don't have a right to park outside my house and harass me. I'm not harassing anyone. I'm just trying to understand how you could throw away our entire marriage for someone who's probably just using you for entertainment. She's going to get bored and move on, and then you'll realize what you lost. She drove off, but I found her there again 2 days later. This time she just sat there staring at the house. When I came outside, she rolled down the window and yelled, "I hope you're happy." I hope she was worth destroying everything we built together. Before speeding away, I blocked her on everything: phone, social media, email, the works. But she kept finding ways to contact me through mutual friends or by creating new accounts. So I called my lawyer and filed for a restraining order. Between the documented harassment of Valeria, the trespassing, the admitted stalking behavior, and the implicit threat against my property, it was pretty cut and dried. I got a temporary restraining order that day, which became permanent a month later. Amanda violated it within 2 weeks by having Brittany call me with a message from Amanda about how sorry she was and how she just wanted to make things right. According to Brittany, Amanda was devastated and just wanted me to know that she'd learned her lesson and was ready to be the wife I deserved. I reported it, and Amanda got a visit from the cops that apparently scared her straight. It's been 4 months since then, and things have finally calmed down. Valeria and I moved in together officially last month. She's everything Amanda never was: stable, honest, supportive, and genuinely interested in my passions. She even helped me finish the interior restoration on the Impala, and now we take weekend drives through the Texas Hill Country in it. Amanda, meanwhile, has apparently moved back in with her parents after bouncing between Brittany's couch and a series of dating app disasters. Bruno's final take on the whole situation: that's perfect. Now she can practice being someone's problem child before she tries to be someone's wife again. Meanwhile, you're out here living your best life with a woman who actually appreciates your skills. That's what we call a glow-up, mi amigo. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if she'd just been honest from the beginning. If she'd said she was having feelings for Rick and wanted to work on our marriage or end it honorably. We probably could have divorced and both moved on with our lives. Instead, she tried to have everything and ended up with nothing. Meanwhile, I got exactly what she thought she was going to take from me: the freedom to be with someone who actually loves and respects me and appreciates the things I'm passionate about.